Okay, friends, we're in week 12. I just gave a nice little TED talk. Week 12, this is our second day. So this is our algo day / anything we wanted to pick up and do. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be talking about more about validations. We're going to talk more about really kind of setting up regex. It's sort of doing like an email validation. It's just pattern validation, pattern recognition, and sort of what we can do there. And so we'll walk through how we do that, and then we're going to build out the remaining pieces of our project just to kind of get everything set up. So that way we can really start. All we have is a login and reg next week, and then our app is done and sort of similar to what a belt exam is going to be. So we're going to jump in and do that. Just as a reminder, you have a discussion question and your core assignment this week is cookie orders with validation. So we learned all about validation, grabbing flash messages from the front to the back. One thing that Tenzin and I did at the very beginning of office hour is there is this portion of if you watch this video where if you submit and none of them are filled out, it says all fields required. But if you do this, if you just do a couple, okay, it's a little bit slow, then only 2 of them happen, right? So we're going to walk through how we could do that just to kind of prep and think through some of the validations portion. Great. So pattern validation is something that's really common. It's called regex or regular expression. And it's a way that we can make sure a string or whatever sort of input we're receiving matches a certain pattern. So it's really common with an email, right? So if you've ever filled out a form and it says, please fill out a valid email, you're like, how does it know? Likely it uses regex. Another way is passwords, right? Is just to make sure that you can, if it has, a first uppercase, a lowercase, a special character, and a number, right? So you can use regex and say, hey, does this string have all of that information available to it? I am not going to teach you regex because regex is something that nobody understands. It's a little bit more of a joke, but there is regex creators. It's not something you need to know, but let's look at it just a little bit. This is a regex for an email. And so what this is allowing is saying A through Z. And so that is lowercase a through Z, capital A through Z. So it's saying it could be any of those, 0 through 9, periods, and underscores. So as long as it has some of that, that's fine. It doesn't have $signs or any of that other stuff, right? That's what this is saying in here. Again, do you need to know this? No, because you can say create regex generator. Next. Oh my gosh, this is too much. Okay, I hate this website already. So we can, there's generators you can kind of go through, cheat sheet. Oh, this is like a practice thing. But there are regex generators out there, and ChatGPT is wonderful for stuff like this. Just say, hey, give me one for email or for a password that needs, 1 uppercase. Here's my conditions, and it can generate that for you. So again, not really necessary. You're not going to get like in a coding interview, they're not going to ask, do you know regex? Can you build me a regex, anything like that. But again, really all it's doing is it is basically creating and saying, here's what's allowed. So lowercase, uppercase, 0 through 9, periods, underscores. It has this @ symbol. And then again, we have our uppercase, lowercase, A through Z, 0 through 9. We can have dots, plus, and then we have a dot, and then some sort of com or org or something, right? You notice we don't have numbers. We don't have anything within that. And then this ends our regex right here. Like this $sign. So really, again, all this is doing is saying, hey, it needs to have these pieces. It needs to fit this pattern, some sort of combination. It doesn't have to be, lowercase, then uppercase, then number. Just it can only contain those. If it's anything outside of whatever we've identified, then that doesn't work. So what we do is we need to bring in the regex model. So let's go to our code here. Let's get that. Cool. Let's go to our code. I'm going to go back to my user. And here, where we've got our validate, if I kind of just pull this up, within our validate user, right, at the very top, before we even identify our class, I'm going to create this variable called email regex. And you're welcome to just copy this from the platform and use it on the exam. Like that's a-okay. Now notice it says a RE compile. This is compiling a pattern. I need to bring that in. So say import RE. And now I can use my email regex. So what I could do is, if we look at the platform, I can go and instead of me having, hey, if my email isn't less than, X amount of characters, I could just throw this value into my validator. So instead of this one, right? Because this doesn't really make sense anyway. If it's less than, I could say if not match user. And one thing to change is I called it data up here. So I'm going to say data, right? So what this is saying is this email regex, that's what we have. That's what we established up here, right? It has a method called match. And it's going to say, is the input that we receive, is the email that we receive, does that match our pattern that we created? It's going to give back true or false. So if it says, if it's not true, right? Because that's what this is. It can equate to true or false. If it's not true, meaning it's false, right? It does not match the pattern. Then we do a flash where we say invalid email address and we add the category of email. And then we say is valid as false. That's it. That's all we have to do for pattern recognition. We could do a regex for password if we wanted. It would be different, but we could do it if we wanted to. No need, but we totally could. And that's it.
Hey, Will,
Yeah.
you said this one was for email. Do we have to do one for each type, like for password or whatever else?
No, you can. So if you wanted to, if you wanted to, you could do that. You don't have to. Not for the exam. If you wanted to do password, you could. So let me see if you've been. Let me try something. Let me see if chat will do it, and I can just do it. One lowercase, one number, and no special characters. Let's see if ChatGPT can do it. Cool. So this is just saying that it can have any of those. It's got to have at least one lowercase, uppercase, and number. And it can only be letters and numbers. So that's what this is doing. So again, I could say, instead of this, comment this out. I could say if not password regex, password must contain at least one uppercase, one lowercase, and one number, password invalid is false. And now we've done regex for both. Now you absolutely don't need to do regex for like a name. And also because, you know, like think of our savior Elon Musk named his kid like X90125 or whatever it is. So if we just put letters, and I do love Elon, by the way. But if we just put letters, then that kind of, some people might have numbers and you kind of don't really know. So you don't need to have regex on everything. It really is just email and password is really kind of the two common ones that you're going to deal with. Cool. So this is now password regex and email regex. And again, you just have these up here. But just like I just wanted to show you the chat GPT, this is why you don't really need to learn like regex. Is you just go to chat GPT. That's what I did. I just have it in line because I have Copilot. It's basically me just asking chat GPT in my code base, but it just created that. So you don't need to, you don't need to know that. But having just an understanding of like, oh yeah, okay, great. It doesn't hurt to understand. But I've never had to like write it by hand. It's like a psychos thing to have to write chat write regex like raw. That's crazy.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, of course. Great. Okay. Awesome. So again, that's really kind of all this is just adding that in there. And again, we're still using our validate form. We've handled all that. And again, we have this category that we've decided to do, flash message with categories. Cool. Great. So with your cookies and orders validation, let's kind of go in and see how we could do this all fields required. And then we'll just kind of build out the rest of the portion of it. The rest of the portion is just going to be kind of us building together. So let's go ahead and do this all fields required. So one way that way around this that we found, I'm sure that there's a million different ways. This was kind of just off the top of my head, a way that we could do it is what's really happening is it's basically saying, hey, if none of them are filled out, if basically none of them pass, I want to say all fields required. But if, you know, any of them do pass, then I want to have the individual thing. One idea we could do is we could say something like this. We could say if len of data, first name, and all of this in its glory. We could just say, let's kind of walk through this real fast. I'm saying, hey, if first name is less than 2 and len data last name is less than 2 and not email regex match data and not password regex match data password, meaning none of them pass, right? Remember, when we're dealing with a conditional and we have this and, that means every single one of them has to be true, right? Every single one of them has to fail. If any of them is true, then, you know, if the last name is greater than 2, then this entire thing fails, right? Then I could say flash, and I'm going to say all fields are required. And we'll just give it a category of all fields. Then I could say, oops, else. And then I move everything over one. So what that's going to do is that's going to check and say, hey, are all of these missing? If they are, then let's go ahead and create a flash. It says all fields required. We can call it all fields. If it's not, then, you know, if one of these is true, then it enters into this, and then we check, and then we go through each one, right? And then we can have our individualized. Does that make sense? Any questions on that?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. So let's go into this. We're in week 11. I'm going to pick env shell. Cool. And then I'm gonna Python server.py and we'll check it. We did a lot of coding. Usually you code a little, test a lot. I'm pretty confident in what we did. Cool. So that was all on user, right? So if I do nothing now, I guess before I do this, this isn't going to show up, right? Okay, we got redirected. What happened there?
I feel we are missing something. Is valid, false?
Why did that pass?
Yeah, after the flash.
Ah, yep. I needed as valid equals false, right? So great catch. This passed. So unfortunately now I have something in there with empty values. The reason that passed is, remember, we said, hey, return is valid. And then we said, if not true, or yeah. Basically, if it's true, if valid is true, then we can go ahead and take the data and we pass it in and we create our user, right? Because I messed up and I forgot to say is valid is false, this happened, right? It entered into here. We just never changed it to false. So invalid never changed. So we returned it as true. That's why it created a new value. So if I were to go to all my users, I think I'll have one empty one right here. I'll delete that. URL was not on the server. Okay. We'll have to go through and fix that. Now, if I were to come here again and I create a user, it sends me back here, but it doesn't show anything. So where do I go if I want to show my message? What would I do?
Would that be an alert?
It'd be an alert. We kind of have a built-in tool here, Flash, same kind of thing. Where would I want to utilize that? Like right now, if I do this, and I say will, now it looks like this. Okay, so I'm getting those. So where could I go to call and have it show all fields required? Let's think about what's happening with my computer. Refresh this. I'm on this form right here, right? This HTML page. When I click create user, what it does is it calls this user create, right? This method's post, and it goes in and says, okay, I'm going to run this function. Then it's going to run my validator. So if not, and then once it sees this, it stops what it's doing. It goes here and it runs this function. Runs all this information, and then it returns, remember, whatever a function returns, that becomes its value, right? And so we're saying, okay, it's either going to return true or false. True, meaning that, hey, everything is good to go, or false, meaning, yep, we need to redirect. So I got sent back to my user form, or I got redirected to user form. So once it gets there, because it was not valid, and we see that validation is false, it was not valid, so it resent me and redirected me. So my computer goes and looks for my route that says user form. And it says, okay, now that I have user form, what do you want me to do? Well, what user form wants is us to render the template of user form HTML. Ah, okay. I go to user form HTML and I see this right here. And I have my entire form. So just taking this information, what I could do is I could say, I created a filter for my category of all fields. So let's go to that. And I'm basically saying, hey, if there's all fields, if there's errors and it has a filter of all fields, like basically there's one, then I'm going to, if there's errors, I want to iterate through them. We already know there's one, but that's okay. We still iterate through. We print the error and for and if and with. Now I know because I built this code, right? That if this shows, this is going to not do anything, right? It's going to say if errors and that's going to be false because we didn't create any errors with a field of first name because my validate function, sorry, either creates this or it creates this. It's never going to create both, right? Because I have this else statement. And so I can just assume that, hey, this is fine. If there's an error with all of them, it's going to show all fields. If this is done, it's going to check both, if first name is good, like it was, it's going to check this and say, is there an error with all fields? No, there's not. Is there a flash message with first name? No, there's not. And it just keeps moving forward. So again, getting used to and practicing, okay, when I click this button, where does it go in my computer? That's going to be a really, really big thing when it comes to debugging or when things aren't working well. Understanding computers can go from here to here, to here, to here. It's going to stop and it's going to go to this page and run this function and then here. And that'll help you debug. And that's what Tenzin, I'm assuming, could probably attest. That's what we've done in Office Hour the last couple of days. It's like, okay, clicks here and then here. And then you just sort of cross out like, okay, it's not this function. This is working well. Let's go to the next thing. Okay, this is working well. Let's go to the next thing. And that's going to be how you debug. So now if we come here and refresh and I create user, and there's nothing, I get all fields are required. If I say, cal w@c.com, and I do this, first name must be at least 2 characters. So we see that it's working, right? It's not showing both messages. Oops, not showing both messages at the same time. Híjole. Are there any questions on that? Cool. What I would say we could do is, when I was on just my normal one, and I went to show all users, and this is how my exam is going to work. Or this is how the exam is going to work. I am going to get your ERD. I'm going to forward engineer it. And then I'm going to spin it up, right? I'll pip install, do all that stuff. I'll spin it up. And then here's what I'm going to check. I'm going to go in, I'm going to try to create something. I'm going to go try to view something. So I'm going to read it. I'm going to try to edit and I'm going to try to delete. That is what I will do. That's kind of the process. And then I'll look at your code and see if there's anything that's crazy. So let's kind of see if we passed so far. So we're able to create a user. Let's create another one. Let's create, create user. Cool. I can go to show all users and now I have Jackson there with jax@c.com. Great. So I'm able to create. We can process that. We're good to go. Now I'm going to go to show. Okay. It hasn't created anything. That's okay. But I am seeing, okay, there is, I'm retrieving something here, right? I might go look at your code if I see none, or usually what I'll do is I'll go to like another one. Like, okay, you are able to grab this with your relationship. Cool. Then I will try to edit. So I'll try to maybe take it down to 1 letter and say, I'm trying to figure out what my password is now that we put the regex. Okay. So now I've changed it, right? And I'm still user 1. So if I come here and I refresh, it's now changed. Great. And then I want to, oops, I want to delete. Ah. It says if the requested URL was not found on the server. That tells me that my delete function doesn't work. So let's go fix that. Now, what I would first do if I was fixing that is I would go, where am I trying to go? My URL was not found on the server. What URL am I trying to send them to? So if I'm going to try to see that, what page would I go to here?
Controller.
Not yet. I'm trying to see where in my control area I'm trying to send myself. So what in my code tells me and will show me where I'm trying to send the user when they click that button.
Oh, the link that takes the delete one.
Mm-hmm. So
The
where would that be?
HTML.
Yeah, my HTML, right? It's going to be in my all users. So here I've got this link called user/user ID/delete. Okay. So I would look at that and say, that makes sense to me. And it doesn't matter the spacing because I also know that I can click show and edit and that works fine. So it's not a big deal. So my next step I would say is now where is this and have I created that? So I would go to my controller and I would look for user update and then user. So it's int ID and then delete. Okay. Let's pull these side by side and see. First and foremost, check, did I spell it correctly? Did user int ID delete? Ah. Now, I'm also going to look at my, I'm going to look at my terminal here, right? Because what I could have done is spent a lot of time and being like, is this working? Is this, done a print sign? Am I getting into this function? How is that working? But if I look at my terminal real quickly, I see that I'm running my query, right? Where it says delete from users where ID equals 6. So I ran my query. So it kind of tells me, hey, I did that correctly. But I noticed that I'm trying to go to /user. So let's go find where /user is. I don't have a /user, right? So what I can do is I just have that issue. That's the route that didn't work. That can be a little confusing at the very beginning, but /user is the route, not my delete route. So I could just say /user/all. Oops, save that. Cool. I'm gonna say /all, and I should see Jackson gone. Yep, I do. So now my delete functionality is working. Let's create a new user. Let's create Jackson again. It's my old dog. Okay, Jackson's created. Show all users. Jackson's there again. I delete, and now my functionality works. Cool. Now what I'd also do is I would check same thing. Let's go to movies. Now, we haven't done login yet. And so when we do our login, we're going to do something where when somebody logs in, right now my form, and we'll update this form whenever we, next Tuesday or next Monday, sorry. Right now we have to manually put this ID, but that's not great, right? What we'll do is we'll have somebody log in. And so we'll keep track of that information via session. And so that way we can actually pass that as a hidden field, right? So I have that information about who actually created it based on whoever's logged in. Right now, we can't really do that. So let's go back. I really should create navigation. If you guys can create navigation, that is super helpful for me. But let's go to Charlie. Is he created? Yeah, Hangover 2, typical Charlie. Okay, Marley's not created any. So let's create one by Marley. And I'm just looking at this to see her ID is 3. Cool. So let's create a new movie. What movie should Marley create? She's kind of angsty, if I'm kind of honest. It's a pretty angsty dog. Kind of rude sometimes.
Maybe something like The Grudge.
The Grudge. Absolutely. That's hilarious. My wife's gonna crack up. Okay, genre, horror. That's so funny. Director, The Grudge. That movie was so terrifying when I was young. Oh my gosh. Walking on her hands. That stuff was crazy. Takashi, Takashi. And then it's by 3. Cool. Create movie. Great. Show all users. Show Marley. Ah, The Grudge. Perfect. Okay, great. Now, again, I'm going to go to show. That's not there. Right? That movie's not there. So let's go build that. And I know that we haven't really built out much of the movie functionality. We've really focused on user. That's okay. So now let's go ahead and start building some of that out. So when I was clicking on one user, I had this, and I had this movie ID if I wanted to show, and it's movie/movie ID. And that said that URL did not work. So let's go ahead and go. I'm going to get out of my users. I'm going to get rid of some of this stuff. And I'm going to go into my movies and see, do we have that? I don't, right? I don't have any of that. So I'm going to say app.route movie/int ID. I'm going to show movie. I'm going to grab the ID. I'm going to say movie.getMovie. Have we created get movie? Let's go check. We've got get movies with genre. We've got get one. Yeah, so we don't have that, right? We have get all, don't get one. Now, ChatGPT did this called get movie. I'm going to call this get one because that's what I called it. I pass in data. Data is the ID. And so then it's going to render template for movie HTML where I pass in that actual movie itself so I can get that information. Now I don't have a movie, I have a movie form, but I don't have a movie HTML. So let's go ahead and build that. Perfect. I'm going to go grab my handy dandy Bootstrap. Cool. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a dot container container. In this, I'm going to have a H1. Oh, we have all this. This is perfectly fine. Ooh, that's not too fine. Let's go back. Cool. So I'm having H1. And then I'm going to say movie. Top title. And remember, where does this movie come from? Anybody remember? Why did I select movie right there?
That was the route.
Wasn't the route.
Movie. Yeah. Get
Remember,
one from get one.
when I am passing data via render template to an HTML, 2 things are happening, right? One, I'm creating a variable. This can be whatever we want it to be. This could be unicorn, it could be cupcake, rainbow, sprinkles. Doesn't matter, right? It could be anything we want. And then we set it, the second thing that's happening is we're setting it to some value that I want my HTML to have access to. In this case, this movie is coming from this variable here. In theory, I actually don't need this variable. I could just say one movie equals movie.getOne. Doesn't matter. What's the most important thing is whatever you call it here, that's what you refer to it as on your HTML. So if I say one movie dot title, that's going to get the title of that movie instance or whatever whatever I bring back. If I have movies, something like that, then that's how it would work. I could say a P tag of say movie dot genre. I already made a mistake. It's not movie, right? It's one movie. Then I got a P tag of one underscore movie dot director. Cool. Great. That should be it, right? Or that's for right now. That's all we need. Cool. Let's go back to my code. Refresh. We're here. Now, if I say show, it takes me to the Grudge or in my director. I could have something different where I might say, genre. So it doesn't just say horror and then director. I can make it look nice if I wanted to, whatever. I come here. But now I can go to this movie. I can view this movie. Cool. So that's fine. And you can have you might have like a wireframe that on show. Maybe you want to have edit and delete on there. The wireframe will show you what you need to have. So I'm not going to worry about it now, but if there is, then you would just have a link like this of edit and delete. So let's go to edit. Let's see if edit works. No, that didn't work. So movie/4/edit is where I was trying to go. So let's go to my code and see, do I have that? I have movie create and movie form, and that's it. So let's go ahead and create that. App.route movie, and then because it was 4, that's the ID I'm assuming. So I'm going to say int ID and then /edit. We know that to be true. Then I edit my movie. We take in the ID. I'm not doing get one though. So see, even ChatGPT can mess up. Because now what I'm going to do is I want to update this information. So first off, I need update, right? I'm going to pass in update. But before we even update, we already built, and we built this on Monday, we built our validator, right? So I first want to say, hey, oh, I see what it's doing. Actually, ChatGPT is not wrong. It is right. What it's doing is it's taking me to edit, and I'm going to grab one movie, and then it's assuming that I'm going to go to an edit movie HTML. Dang, I talked bad about the computers, and now they're going to end me. I skipped a step, right? When I click edit movie, I'm not sending information to be changed. I'm just saying I want to go to the HTML that I can change it. That's what ChatGPT was doing. So our AI overlords, please forgive me. They're right. It's right. So template, I'm going to go to edit movie. .html. Perfect. And then if I've got to edit user here, I'm actually just going to snag this and I'll just change the values. You don't have to you don't have to redo all your code all the time. You just go in and change it. It's a little bit easier. So when I am changing this, I'm wanting to go to movie/ID/update. Now, I don't have that built yet, but I know that's kind of how I've wanted to create this. Just kind of pausing real fast. We've talked about it before, but I kind of want to reiterate. When we are building on our route, so let's say our base route is, we have movie/create, movie/ID, movie/ID/edit, movie/ID/update, movie/ID/delete. That's what we call RESTful routing, or RESTful API is what you'll hear it as. There's lots of APIs out there. If you remember back when we were dealing with, or back when you guys dealt with like the Luke Skywalker API, or if you've ever used any sort of Pokemon API or anything like that, by building on that, you're keeping it saying, okay, all the movies are going to start with movie slash something, right? Movie slash form or movie slash update or ID or whatever. That's just building on your routes. So it's not having individual routes because that's kind of confusing. It helps people use your API, which is really all we're building. It's just a server, right? So I just wanted to build on that. That's why it's always movie slash, and then we just kind of follow that same structure. Cool. So that's why I'm going to say movie slash, I'm going to say one movie because that's what it's passing us, right? Slash update. Great. We can assume that that's great. Now I'm going to take in, this is going to be for title. This, I'm just going to do this real fast. Again, if you hold Alt and you double click, it gets you all of them as you want. Say one movie. And then I can delete the password because I don't need a password. I only have 3 things. So let's get rid of that. I just have movie, director, and genre. The thing to, if you're going to copy, that's a-okay. I have no, I mean, I just did it. Just make sure that, especially like with name and when you're dealing with request.form, you want to make sure you go through that really, really quite a bit. Cool. And it's not going to be last name. It's going to be genre. And then we got one more. Oh, I've already changed title. Great. Cool. So the other thing I would want to do is when I look at movie, I've got a validator, the title, genre, and director. So let's go ahead and change that here as well. So if there is an issue, this is above director. This is going to be genre and category filter for title. Perfect. So now I'm going through this again because I copied and pasted. We have movie, one movie ID. And remember, this one movie is coming from this right here. So we have one movie title, error, that's fine. Title, 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 one movie title, genre, 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 one movie genre, and then director. Cool. So everything should be working, right? So whenever this happens, we're going to send this value to this slash movie, slash ID slash update. So let's go ahead and build that out because we don't have that at the moment. I have this update. It is a post request, right? Because it's a form. And then we update our movie just like this. Now let's check and see. Yep, movie ID. So let's go ahead. And before we do this though, I can say if not movie validator request.form, redirect to movie slash ID slash edit, right? So I'm just pulling in my validator. I'm saying, hey, if you're going to edit this, you still have to have the correct information. I guess we technically have one more piece of information we need to pass in. My movie form, and that is user ID. Technically, we still have to have it. But I'm not going to create a validator for that because it needs to be, well, I guess I am going to create a validator because I need to make sure. See if, I don't need the len, I just need data, user ID. Not equal to 0, but if it is less than or So they don't put anything and we get a none, or if it's less than one, so it shouldn't be anything. Then it's gonna say user ID was required user. And then we can just go to my edit movie and just see if chat will do it for us. Yep, perfect. Cool. And then we make sure that it makes us is valid as false. Perfect. So what will happen is once we click that, we go to update. Yep, we go to update. We run this function. We run our validator. If anything's broken, we send us back to our original route. If everything's good to go, we take in our data. Let's say user ID. Oh. Yep. Perfect. We pass in our data. And then we redirect back to the movie's ID, which we have right there. It's our movie information. Cool. So let's go test that out. Refresh. If I go to edit, I get an error. I lost. So it says unexpected end of template. Jinja was looking for the following end with. So that means somewhere in my Jinja, for my edit movie, I have right here. I need an end with. Chat GPT did me dirty. There we go. Unexpected curly boy. Where is that?
Is it because you missed the percent on the end with?
Yep.
And with, yeah.
Oh, Chat GPT. See, it's not a savior. Though it is gonna be our overload. It's pretty sweet. Okay. So now here we go. We're able to grab that movie. And let's say we wanted to make it instead of by Marley, let's make it by Charlie. Let's do Kate. That makes more sense. I edit movie. Okay. So we ran into an error, right? With my validator. Anybody understand what's going on here?
Is it because it can't use a mathematical operation on a string?
Exactly. So what can I do to fix that?
Would you be able to typecast it with like int colon inside the bracket there on user ID?
Believe I should. You're exactly right. Just do that. Typecast it as an int. Cool. Let's go back. Refresh. Say this by 4. Edit movie. Cool. So we got sent back to the movie, which is good. That's exactly what we expected to happen. But now this will be the big kicker. If I go to show all users, it should not be associated to Marley anymore. Oh, it is. It's not associated here. Let's check and see what happened. Oh, I think. Let's go to my query here. So I said update set title, genre, director, ID. So I didn't update. What I did not update is the actual ID itself. Right? Because I don't have that there. I don't have a user ID here. And I could say something like user_ID equals % And I think I called it user underscore ID. Let's see if this works. I might break everything. And we're at time, so if this doesn't work, that's okay. Let's go back. Let's go to Marley, show. Edit. 4. Edit movie. Okay, so it's still there. Let's go back. Let's go back. Let's go back. Refresh. Get all that new information. Go to Kate. And now it's there. So now I changed my user where Marley does not have it anymore. Okay, cool. And the last thing I would do is delete. But you guys, we've done delete with user, so it's just kind of plug and play. It's 6 o'clock, so I want to make sure that I respect your time. But yeah, and then after that, and delete's already built. I just need to build the actual function, but it's already built right here. So, should all be good to go. I bet if I just do this, then it's probably done. Yep. So let's go check it, and then our code is done. So if we go to show, and I delete the grudge, show all users, show, Kate no longer has anything, and Marley no longer has anything. So we deleted the grudge. And all we did for that is we had our route, which we already had. That was our button. We took the ID from that route, and then we ran this dot delete. All dot delete is doing is it's delete from movies where the ID is that, and that's it. Then we're just returning us back to the original route. And notice that when I say original route, it's actually pulling from here to this. That's okay. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. Are there any questions? We did a lot today. But then, are there any questions? Is this making sense to you guys? How are we feeling about this?
Pretty good here. It's definitely making sense, but just gotta get more practice with it, more repetitions, I think.
Yeah,
But-
for sure.
So the recording's for.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
Hey, Will,
Yeah.
can we use validation for both create and update with one validation?
Yeah, that's what we did, right? Here we just have user validate. So this is on my updating. So just validating and making sure. So yeah, we just write the same line code as we did up here.
Mhm.
Yep. We just might want to redirect somewhere different. So here I redirect back to the edit page for the edit page compared to the creation page. But yeah, it's the same exact thing.
Mhm.
Cool. Any other questions?
Hey, well, what's the name of the Copilot you're using?
It's GitHub Copilot, though I would wildly encourage you to not do it yet.
Okay, oh wait.
Simply because we saw that there's a couple times it did some stuff incorrect. And just because and I've done it, it's gotten better, but over the time, there's been a couple different things that it does, like on that HTML at the very beginning for edit movie, it had a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't want to have, or when I was showing movie. So, because I've done this for a couple of years, I can look at it and be like, no, I don't want to do that. You guys, not as much. And so I would say, again, kind of back to my TED talk at the beginning, just encourage you to hold off just for a bit until at least you take the exam and pass the exam. And that tells me, okay, you've done it. And then if you want to use it, that's fine. Because I think it is a tool that you need to learn. Like, it's just being blunt, you're going to be behind if you don't use some sort of AI pair programmer. Not behind now, but if like there are some people that are like, I'm not going to ever use ChatGPT. It's like, that's kind of dumb because your output's going to be way higher. But you have to know first what it is, like what the coding versus that. So like if I'm learning a new language, I'll actually turn it off because I don't want it to autocomplete because I won't learn the code. So,
Yeah.
but it's called GitHub Copilot. There's a few out there. There's AWS has one. There's a whole bunch. So
All right,
Cool.
thank you.
yeah. Cool. I'll stop the recording here.